Welcome to Hairblazers, the podcast where salon owners and industry specialists share their knowledge. Our mission is to empower owners and elevate salons through conversations about what matters most to you. Many people buy a salon because they are great hairstylists. However, successful salon ownership requires a completely different set of skills, which includes business management and leadership. The great thing about our industry is that everybody has the opportunity to be a leader. Today, we're talking about all things leadership, and I'm lucky enough to have Jodi Ohama here, and she is a leadership guru, a leadership coach. Used to be a salon owner, so a lot of experience with that, and also is a coach with Cunity.
Yeah, you bet.
Well, which is really cool. So Cunity is a company that helps salons and wellness businesses grow and achieve more financial success. So today, leadership, it's your thing.
Yeah.
Where should we even start?
Oh my gosh, Colleen, so excited to be here. And yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking about leadership. So why don't we just sort of jam around leadership? Okay.
So first of all, I'll mention, I just threw this at Jodi like an hour ago. Jodi's visiting us right now. And I thought, why not take the opportunity to have you on the podcast? So we're going to wing it a little bit, but I think you have a lot of great knowledge to share with owners. And and also stylists as well.
Yeah, you bet.
So leadership, not necessarily a position.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think leadership, what I love about our industry is that everyone has the potential to be a leader, right? I think everyone in our industry influences other people. So I'm super passionate about leadership because it's my jam. I love this whole idea of like, how do we help people unlock their best potential?
Yes.
How do we just, make things bigger, better? How do we promote collective wellness? All these sort of fun things. So I've loved working with you and your team. So can I throw a couple questions at you, Colleen? Okay. When you think about leadership, what do you, what comes to mind for you as what makes a great leader?
That's a loaded question. What makes a great leader? I think there's many different attributes of a great leader. I think a leader needs to be authentic. I think they need to walk the walk, and it's not just managing people and saying this is what you need to do, but also being the person that's gonna be the essence of what you expect other people to be as well. And caring, you need to care about people. You cannot be a good leader if you're most concerned about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. I love hearing these words, the authenticity,
yes.
The truly caring about people, the being a role model. Yeah, absolutely. How did you, I've had the pleasure of witnessing you in action as a leader. How did you learn how to be a leader? How does one actually learn how to be a leader?
So we hired Jodi. Partly. But I think being a leader, it also takes practice, and you need to grow as a leader. You could be a great leader in the moment, but if you don't, read books and hire a coach and learn how to be better, you're going to be stagnant. And that those leadership skills that you had at that one moment in time are not going to take you through the future. Things change, people change, the people that you lead change. So you really have to be able to change with them. And I think that's a huge struggle right now for a lot of, and I don't want to throw a lot of salon owners under the bus, but people who have been in the salon industry for a long time and have kind of that old school mentality. And it's like kids these days. And it's they're not going to change. So you might have to do the changing.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not even just our industry. I coach a lot of executives when I'm coaching with the school, but it's the same in all industries, right? Mm-hmm. It's if anyone is stuck, any leader is stuck in that old school mentality and looking externally and saying, well, they are doing this or then you're not going to be a really effective leader. Leadership does start with each of us. So, and yeah, you're right. How does one learn to be a leader? Oftentimes it's through trial and error. But what I really heard you say was this growth mindset. Mm-hmm. It's how do you solve these problems? How can you be solution focused rather than focusing on what's not working, right? I think that's a key piece or key element of being an effective leader.
And it takes time to get to the point where you realize okay, I'm going to start looking at myself and but what myself. This is what I've been learning too, is what can you take control of and go with that? Because you can't control other people. So it's figure out what you can do. So again, back to looking at yourself, and you really, and I don't want to make you blush or anything, but you really taught me that. Whereas I could get, you could get frustrated, and I think I'm not the only one, frustrated with things just not seeming to click or not seeming to work. And it's bring it back to yourself and what can you do to fix the situation? And I think when other people that you're trying to work with see that you're really taking onus or taking control of like yourself, it makes them more willing to be like, oh, maybe I can do that too.
Wow, that's the whole thing. It's like you hit the nail on the head. Like we can't control anyone else. Man, our job would be so much easier if we could just say, if people would just do what we ask them to do, right? So yeah, that reflection, looking at ourselves, not making things right or wrong or, that I'm good or bad.
Yes.
It's just, okay, if that didn't work, what else can I try? What else could I do differently? So yeah, I'm really hearing this sort of growth mindset. Absolutely. Like that is a key element of leadership. I think another thing with leadership or another important piece for all leaders is to have a compelling vision, like to be really, truly connected to what it is that you're doing. Like what is it that you're trying to create? Where are you trying to move people towards, right? And oftentimes the work that I do with leaders, they have a hard time
like putting it into words.
Yeah, putting it into words. So yeah, so Colleen, when you think about in your business or the team that you're leading, like really what is it that you're trying to create?
Funny when you said it, right away I thought, man, it's so difficult to put into words. But when I've thought about this a lot, and like I know for us, we want to create a place where people can thrive. People love their careers. They can grow. They can make money. They make other people feel great, and they can come there knowing that they're going to be part of something that's, bigger than just them, and that their leadership team believes that and really cares as well. And like for some people, it might be like, I just want to make money.
Yeah.
That could be your vision. If that's your vision, maybe salon ownership or leading the people in the salon might not be the answer for you.
Right. Yeah, right. Like, I love that you were so quick. You're like, no, this is what I'm creating. Like, this is what I'm up to. This is what, this is what you're doing. And, and again, we said earlier that everyone in the business could be a leader, so even if you're a stylist, you still have this potential to influence others. So same thing, like having this vision, like what kind of stylist do you want to be? How are you leading yourself? What is it that you're trying to create? Same thing, right? To have that clear idea. What do you think gets in the way of leaders being able to be self-reflective or to look at themselves and create the results that they want?
I think past experiences is a huge one. Like people are formed by their past, and everybody's past is different, right? So it's like you can't expect someone to react to something or a challenge the same way as you would react to something. Yeah. So it's almost like learning that that's just the way it is, or like feeling like you should know something or you should be in a certain place that you're not. Like I found one of the biggest keys to being able to lead efficiently is to be able to be vulnerable and admit like, I don't know everything.
Yeah.
I'm going to try, and I'm going to let you, like, I'm okay with letting you know that. And I think people really respect when they see that you're able to be vulnerable. And that goes not just for like people in like when I say leadership, like a management position, but also for anybody that wants to be a leader.
Yeah. And I think, again, and that vulnerability, what you said was like, okay, I don't know the answers. That's a different type of vulnerability than saying like, hey, here's all my problems and blah, blah, like, that's not the type of vulnerability that we're talking about with leaders. Of course, leaders still need to be a beacon of hope for others or a path forward, to be able to show other people a path forward. So there can't be like it can't be this,
emotional release.
I'm
like sure that happens too.
That's another great element of leadership is this emotional control. Like how does we are, of course, are emotional beings, but how does one really be skillful in managing their emotions and ensuring that their emotions or that they're not reacting emotionally to what's in front of them? So let's sort of talk about that. Like,
yeah, well, that's a good question. I was going to turn that around on you.
Oh,
you tell me.
Yeah, I think, emotional, first of all, understanding that, yes, we are emotional beings, that we all have emotional responses, and it's not to not have an emotional response, but it's that moment of pause where you can then say, you could choose a skillful action rather than just reacting. It's here's an intentional action. And sometimes being a leader is just saying to the person that you're leading, what, I need a moment right now,
and that's okay.
That's absolutely okay. I'd much rather see that than someone have to, have a reaction that they then have to go back and, respond to. And
So let's say you have, two employees or two team members that are obviously very different, because that's what happens.
Yep.
One of them is someone who just naturally loves to like figure things out right away. As soon as there's an issue, just wants to deal with it, get it over with. And then you have somebody else who doesn't like to just be reactive in the moment, and they need time to think about it and come back. So I think a lot of people see that in many challenges with differing personalities. So what would you say would these two people come to you? What would you say is the best way to deal with that situation?
Yeah, it's always about finding the common ground, right? Like, so neither of those reactions are wrong or right. It
Right.
just is. One person is more reactive in the moment. One person needs more time to reflect or to process or to gather their thoughts. I think if these two people came to me and said, hey, we have a challenge with one another, and they both know that that's the way that they process, it is about, you know, making them both aware that that's the case, and then asking them, okay, well, how might they want to approach this where it's a win-win between the two of them?
So it's like understanding the other person's point of view.
Yeah, there has to be that. Like, that's the whole thing with leadership too. It's like, it's meeting people where they're at.
Yes.
Understand, like taking control of yourself, but also knowing that you're meeting someone where they're at. So oftentimes as leaders, it's not about our needs. It's about, it's rarely about our needs, right? It's really about meeting that person where they're at. So, but sometimes if it's two employees and, you know, they both feel like their needs are just as important or valid as the other person's, as a leader, rather than triangulate, meaning like rather than deal with one here and dealing with one here, it's like bring them together and like, where's the common ground? How do we work together respectfully so that there is a win-win in both ways? And yeah,
that makes sense. And that also makes me think of, there's so many situations, and I think a lot of salon owners get maybe into trouble when they're dealing, when you say triangulation.
Yeah, when it's like, oh, this person told me this, and then this, it's like, oh man, like no, like you
bring them together,
bring people together,
like be in there and like be a, you know, mediator or whatever, facilitator. But I think that's a great habit to get into for people that maybe have a challenge right now with that, because I think there could be a lot of situations in salons and other businesses where that's a challenge. So maybe starting to bring people together instead of having this like, I'm going to talk to one person and then give it to the next person, like make it a comfort thing, because right now it's so uncomfortable for so many people to have direct conversation. Right. Make it so it's not uncomfortable.
Try to create that safe space. Yeah. And that's not to say, you know, there are some situations, of course, where you can't bring people together, you know, like if there's something that's threatening someone's safety, of course, you know, you want people to be able to come to the leader and you want the leader to address that really quickly. But most of the time, I think that challenges could be resolved by actually just, you know, bringing people together and having conversations.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question.
Okay, yeah.
For new team members, maybe people who are younger on a team, what are some great ways to start establishing themselves as a leader?
Oh, man, I think, it's a great question. There's so many things. The first thing that popped into my mind for sure was self-confidence, like that. And again, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier around, you know, knowing what it is that you're trying to create. So again, I think, self-confidence in those, you know, people who've just joined your team, really having some confidence on what it is that they do, what is it that they're providing, and being able to do a good job at that. So I think that's the foundation, maybe.
Yep.
Communication. So having those, two things, communication, like, so having those conversations, asking questions, asking for help when needed. And then also that other piece around leadership is doing the right things. You know, it's like, even when they're hard.
Even when it's hard,
you know, and I think going back to the communication too and asking questions, like if you don't understand why someone's asking you to do something, or your leaders or your company is asking you to do something, taking the responsibility to find out why, you know, not making the assumption that, whatever.
It's like for personal gain for the company or whatever, right? No assumptions.
Like go back and actually like find out the why. Because oftentimes too, if there's not, you know, in a company, you asking why, if there's not a good reason why, they might be like, oh yeah, you know what, actually let's make a change. Or, you know, most of the time though, companies have some pretty solid understanding of why they're doing what they do. Hopefully. Yeah. I think so. Hopefully. Most of the time. Yeah.
Anyone that's listening here.
Hopefully, you know why you do the things you do. Yeah.
And then with salon owners, I mean, that's the other side of it. There's going to be a lot of salon owners out there that are amazing hairstylists, like we talked about before. They open salons. It's a passion. What are some things they can do if maybe they're feeling they're having a challenge, you know, converting from a hairstylist to the salon owner leadership position?
Yeah, I remember us having this conversation before. I don't know if we talked about it here in this podcast, but, you know, that idea of most people who own a salon or buy a salon, it's because they're a great hairstylist, you know, and it's a completely different skill set to run a successful salon. Like you could be a great hairstylist, but you may have really poor leadership skills. So it's a brand new skill set that you have to learn. So What was the question again? What did you
So
say?
like what's a next step they could take if they realize, maybe I either need some work, or do I hire someone?
Yeah, I think the awareness, first of all, that it's a totally different skill set. Just because you're a great hairstylist does not mean that you're going to be a great leader. It does not mean that you're going to influence people or people are going to want to follow you, because that's really what leadership is. So it's just having that awareness, and then looking at your business and asking yourself, are you getting the results that you want? And if you're not, then it is about doing something differently. So, that you have to go into that growth mindset. So that means you can, engage with mentors or coaches or read some resources or go to school or whatever it is. But it's that base place is just, understanding that there's some skills to learn. It's not about anyone else. What you see, what you see in your business. And I say this, a lot of the people I coach, and some people it sort of tweaks them the wrong way, but it's like what you see in your business is a direct reflection of you as a leader.
It is.
And sometimes people say, well, no, this person does this. I'm like, yeah, well, you as a leader are allowing that person to be in your business. Or you as a leader have not coached this person to the point where they've left your business, or have made the expectations clear enough, or given them enough support. Like, it's a full-time job being a leader. So I know that there are some people who listen to this podcast that are leaders or business owners who are behind the chair 5 days a week. In that case, you need other people to be in leadership positions. You need people who are going to coach, mentor. Yeah. You need help. You need help.
You need help.
Yeah. Let's talk about the shift that's happened in leadership in the past decade.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. Leadership in the last decade has changed quite a bit. Before COVID, of course, and it's weird that we talk about life this way now, like
before and after.
Before and after. But it really did change our world. It created a lot of uncertainty in our world, a lot of uncertainty in employment, all of that. So it has changed the people that we lead, of course. It's also changed all of us as leaders. I think that with that said, leaders are really called right now to create certainty as much as possible. That's really where I see the leaders who are most successful right now in all industries are leaders who can really talk about certainty. What doesn't change? What are we about? What can we do? Where I think leadership in the past, especially in small and medium-sized businesses, was all about innovation and what are we doing differently and blah, blah, blah. And that's exciting, sure. But right now, it's actually, there's a shift where our people want to be more certain,
stable,
a little bit more stability. So I think the innovation and stuff should stay right now, anyways, is more in, smaller teams, smaller groups, not necessarily out into the larger group.
Right.
I think that's interesting. That's a shift. But also, if you just think about the way the world has been in the past, even, leaving COVID aside, leadership where before, me growing up, leaders, we used to get our information and guidance from people who were experts or older than us.
Yes.
Right. And then with the internet, we now get our information through this web. We now, I care about what my peers, like I'm looking to my peers and what they're doing. That's very different. The leadership hierarchy where we had it before, that's not where people aren't going to, an expert or someone who's
there's more like sharing
experience.
Like, and you said like web, like there's the computer web, and then it's also like the web of like sharing and
it's
networking,
this peer
right?
web. Yeah. It's like, so like, so there's that, like the way we get our information. Yeah. This web, it's like peers and like learning from one another. Whereas before it was always like, oh, I'm going to learn from that person, or I'm going to listen to what that person is. The other thing is there's way more distrust.
Yes, absolutely.
In leadership, there's distrust in politicians. There's distrust in CEOs or big organizations, right? And so that does filter down also into the small business world, right?
So like more pressure on management and owners to make sure they're being transparent with things, and it's also probably a lot harder on them than before. Like their responsibilities are huge. People are taking a magnifying glass to what they're doing every day, right? So for them, getting help, they're forced to grow more.
Yeah.
Like getting a mentor, reading more. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean?
No, absolutely. No, it's again, that growth mindset, right? Like, you're right. What leaders are asked for now, like what the sort of role that leaders have to play now, your therapist, your coach, your mentor, your, friend, your parents, there's so many things now. Whereas before it was just, hey,
I'm going to tell you what to do and you do
I'm gonna tell you what to do. Right. And like people didn't really push back, but now it's like, no, why?
Yeah.
And I like it. I like where we're
Mhm.
at right now, in the world. I think that it's more exciting. Like we are sort of co-creating something,
Yes.
we're doing something together and we're seeing this vision. We're moving towards something together.
Kind of being
so
forced to grow, right?
We are,
Yeah.
I think we are, we're being forced to grow, but then again, it's still a choice. People sometimes will choose to be stuck into that mentality of like, oh, it's everybody else.
Right.
And, it's their fault, or rather than looking within and just say, what can I do?
What can I do? That's
Yeah.
kind of where it all goes back to, right? What can I do?
It always goes back to oneself. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I love it. So philosophical.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. What do you think, Colleen? What are your favorite leadership books or leadership books that have really influenced you?
Ooh, I'll say my favorite right now is Radical Candor.
Oh yeah.
And I love the way Kim Scott puts everything. And I also, this is weird, but I love her voice.
Oh,
like, so I
it?
listen to audiobooks because I live out of town, so I drive in. So I listen to her and I really can feel her passion when she's talking about it. And it really is a book for leaders who lead leaders.
Yeah.
Or like managers who lead people that lead as well. So it's a great point of view. It's not just how can you be a great leader, but also how can you create and help grow other great leaders.
Yeah. How do you provide feedback in a way that is heard? Yeah. I love that book too. It's a good one. And I think everyone as a leader, you need to know how to provide feedback. And that's a big, that's another thing we could talk about with leadership is just the fear that people have in communication or in coaching people. And it's like, if it's not you, like if you're the leader, if not you, then who? Like who's going to sort of guide someone or mentor someone? If you're not the one who's going to deliver constructive feedback, like areas where people can grow,
who's going to do it?
Then who's going to do it?
And one of the cool parts of the book, and I just thought of this now and remembered it, is how you can start by asking your team to give you feedback.
Right.
So you're like inviting feedback from your team. So it's great practice for them. They're not just giving it to you, because a lot of times team members are kind of nervous to do that, right?
Right.
So you're opening the door saying, I want you to give me feedback.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And if you do that and you get feedback, you can't flip off the handle and be like, how dare you? Or, you have to really make sure. Sometimes leaders have a hard time saying, okay, give me feedback. Or leaders can say that, but then the people that they lead sometimes have a hard time giving the feedback. So it's nice also to give direction on like, give me feedback around this.
Yep.
Hey, I'm trying to become a better listener. Can you provide me some feedback or some, feed forward how I might be able to do that? Or I'm trying to be more organized or, more present or whatever it is. Like if a leader does say that, then sometimes you'll get a little bit more specific.
Right. And
feedback.
Find something in that feedback they give you. Even if you may inside not agree with everything, you need to find something in that you can really show them then that you haven't just listened to them and not done anything, something that you've actually taken action on. And in that case, they'll probably realize, hey, maybe I can take feedback too. It's not so bad. So it goes both ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your favorite book?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Right now, I think probably one of the most instrumental. Man, there's two probably. Dare to Lead, I think Brene Brown.
Yes, love that
I just
book,
love the way she writes because it's so simple and I think it's accessible for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And some great, pieces of wisdom. But I think The Fifth Discipline, which is an old book and it's all about creating a learning organization. So it's not even actually leadership. Like it is leadership, but I think it's The Fifth Discipline, Peter Senge. And he just talks about, people's mental models, why we do the things we do, how do we lead others? Like, interesting. It's a great book. I constantly go back to it. It's one of those books that I'm sure the first time I read it, I think I read it first like 20, 25 years ago. Wow. And there's other editions now. But when I first read it, I was like, oh man, like it's pretty heady, but there are some really great pieces in it. And then I read it again. I think I just read it again. The last time I read it was about a year ago. And I was like, oh man, I missed all these things. The first like 4 times I read it. So there's always something in there. Like Yeah. It's about how to create a learning
That's
organization.
really cool. We can put those like in the links as well.
Yep.
So people can
Yeah.
purchase those books.
Yeah. There's so many great
I
ones
know.
out there.
We'll have to
you know?
create like a list.
Yeah.
The
Resource list. I
best
think
resource
that's,
list.
I
We're
love
going
it.
to do that. Okay.
Okay. We'll
And
do
then
that.
we'll make a
Okay.
podcast episode just on all the books that we love.
Books on the resources. I love it.
Awesome.
Great. Okay. Any
Okay.
final words? Like, what do you think? Anyone who's out there, salon owner who's out there listening, what advice would you give them to develop their own leadership? What's the first thing that they could do?
Oh, I mean, as we've gone back to a million times, like take a look at yourself. What could you do better? What could you work on? Start with that before you look at your team, because your team's going to be looking at you.
Yeah. Nice.
How about
Nice
you?
one. That's a good one.
Top that.
Let's see. Advice. Yeah. Know that it's okay to make a mistake. Like there is no right or wrong. There's not a perfect way or a right way to do something. It's just, if something didn't work, that's okay. You just try something else,
Just
so like let go of that perfectionism, know that it's okay to make mistakes. That's, make that safe to do it. So yeah.
I love that.
Nice.
That's a good one
Nice.
too.
Thanks, Colleen.
Well,
Super fun having a conversation with you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being with me on this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave a review, share with your friends, and tune in for our next episode. We appreciate you.